Have we finally solved the mystery as to why silver's price has not gone straight to the moon? Or at least kept up with gold's price performance? Well, not exactly. However, a very good explanation can account for a lot of it. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video as we explore. There is a real good reason now that we can say with a very good amount of confidence as to why silver's price has not soared. And it all comes down to the market and supply and demand. That's really the most simple explanation we can give as to why we are not seeing silver's prices increase dramatically. Because the truth is, there is enough supply, in spite of what you've been hearing, and in spite of what I've been talking about on this channel as well, too. There is enough supply, and I'll explain what that means. I'm going to be referencing a piece here that is actually dates back a couple of months that really puts everything into perspective. When I saw this, it really gave me kind of a eureka moment here. And I didn't realize how much impact this has. But when you think about it, I mean, good grief. You and I, we can go and buy an ounce of silver or 10 ounces or 5 ounces of silver from anywhere with relatively low premiums. It's pretty much, very much plentiful. Silver is for you and I. And don't you think if they really needed it for all of these applications that are much more important than you and I having them sit around in our safes or on our desk, that it would be much harder for us to get and the premiums would be higher? There's got to be something to that. And I think that's part of the reason why silver's price has not really performed like it should. So let me get into this. Silver production is failing to keep up with rising demand. Now that may sound completely opposite to what I've been talking about. Contradictory completely, but it's not. You wouldn't know it by looking at the silver price according to this piece here from FX Street. Phillips Baker, CEO of Hecla Mining and chairman of the Silver Institute, the metal's most prominent industry trade group, recently made a presentation at the London Bullion Market Association Global Precious Metals Conference in Spain. The presentation focused on silver's expected role in the transition to green energy, but it included some interesting details on the market in general. This is it, folks. This should help give you some insight and open your eyes a little bit as to why silver's price is not climbing. According to the Institute's press release, delegates asked Mr. Baker whether we will have enough silver for the green transition. He replied in the affirmative, explaining that while the silver market is currently in a structural deficit, above-ground stocks of silver will be mobilized to meet the demand. Now that is something that's going to be coming in the future. But here's the kicker, folks. It's already happening now. We are already seeing silver being recycled. And maybe not to the scale that most of us would like, but I've been talking about how they have been making great advancements in recycling silver. I've talked about how they're able to essentially take silver particles out of raw sewage. That's right. They can now do that, or they're working on it. And this was a study that was done years ago that I talked about on this channel. So that's one aspect of this thing that I think a lot of people, including myself, have really kind of ignored or not really taken that much account into it. And I'll explain some of the reasons why that is too. Because we have to think a little bit outside of ourselves and outside of the confirmation bias that justifies holding this metal. Because why do we do it? Well, we do it because we think it's going to protect us from inflation and that it's going to be a store of value and that it's going to essentially soar one day. Now, I've got some realism for you here, too. I'm going to be real with you as much as I can because being realistic about silver is the best service that I can provide to this audience. Now, he added that there are no new significant silver deposit discoveries at present. In fact, we know this, that primary silver mining is declining at a rapid rate. However, there is a lot of silver that is mined as a byproduct of other metals, and that is something we have to keep into account as well, too, which really makes it much tougher to kind of measure to some degree. And we know that the geopolitical issues and mine permitting delays continue to be encumbrances to bringing new sources of mined silver to the market. According to the 2023 World Silver Survey, demand outstripped supply in 2022 by nearly 238 million ounces. That is amazing. That's possibly the most significant deficit that has ever been recorded. Supply was about 20% short of what was needed to maintain equilibrium. Silver demand rose in nearly all the categories, and that is really amazing to see, but the silver price has not made much movement. In fact, in some aspects, when you account for inflation, especially for this year, it went down. Down for silver. That's pretty frustrating for those of us who hold it, and we want to expect it to do better. So meanwhile, mine output fell versus the prior year, confirming what the Hecla CEO said about the difficulties miners face in bringing new production online. It's getting harder and harder to find high-grade deposits, and it's more difficult and expensive to develop and operate a mine. The structural deficit in silver has now run for 2 years consecutively, and likely it's going to continue for a third year in 2024. The shortfall was 50 million ounces in 2021. The massive imbalance between supply and demand should have generated an explosive move in the price last year, but it didn't. The paper price of silver finished just 4% higher for the year. The data for 2023 won't be available for months, but another deficit is likely this year, making it the third consecutive year of deficits. So if you count 2024 in as well, we're going to be swimming in a deep ocean of deficits again, and likely we'll probably see the silver price pretty much stay relatively low, although I think some people we predict that we may see silver finally break out, and I'm going to get to that in a moment here in the video. The shortfall must be met by pulling silver from above ground supplies. There are well less than 2 billion ounces available on exchanges and other publicly disclosed silver stockpiles across the globe. And beyond that, the amount of silver in the form of coins, bars, rounds, silverware, and other scrap is less known. In fact, I bought some silver recently from scrap, a really kind of cool piece. And I'm going to show you that here. It's in this bag right here. I'm going to show you that here later in the video, so stay tuned. Now, to be sure, massive supply of silver contracts can be created on the trading exchanges, especially with the use of leverage that does create the potential for abuse, manipulation, and price dislocations. Now, that is pretty interesting to see that what they're saying there. In other words, that is an argument for manipulation, and what other word for that can we think of than more specifically than price suppression, which means I'm not discounting that as a possibility. But with all of these above ground stockpiles that are being created here or recycled, the amount of silver in the form of coins, bars, rounds, silverware, and other scrap that are there are going to be coming through. A lot of it is being sold. Some local coin shops that I frequent, they are getting it, which is where I bought this piece here I'm going to show you in a minute. So to be sure, these supplies and the silver demand outpacing new mine supply each year, these supply deficits seem likely to put upwards pressure on the silver price in the coming years. In the end, actual physical silver, not paper, is required to satisfy physical demand, which means that sooner or later something's got to give somewhere, unless they can find ways to recycle a lot more silver and very, very quickly. we are seeing it. Places like the Royal Mint, for instance, are doing their own recycling and creating jewelry out of that recycling. But there's other factors that are coming into play too, as we see more and more of this occur. And there's a lot of silver to recycle across the board. And make no mistake, there are some of these scrap companies that will take this stuff and refine it for industrial use. They're going to start paying more for it, which is going to create that separation to some degree, and that very well could lead to higher prices down the road. Another case in point, more evidence that this has occurred, is the amount of silver leaving the LBMA and the COMEX stockpiles is being replenished and sent out for use from refined, from recycling. These bars are created in 1,000 ounce, which is a single contract. The large contract is 5,000 ounces, 5 of those bars together. And folks, that is creating and meeting the demand that's needed for actual silver for a lot of the products. And so far, keeping the price low. But there's only so much more that can be recycled efficiently. But as technology continues to develop, well, here we are in 2024, the year of the dragon, and we'll continue to watch as things progress in the silver market. And if there's enough supply to meet demand, which means that we need to watch the COMEX, the LBMA vaults, to see how low they can go, because that's remains to be the explanation as to why these vaults have been so low. And it has not had a dramatic impact yet on the price of silver. But nonetheless, it very well could. And so this means, I believe, that we could be on the cusp of not necessarily a huge price surge and a soaring or going to the moon like overnight, but I think we're going to start to see the silver price gradually move in an upwards direction, which means that I'm convinced more than ever that I think that the floor for silver is going to be somewhere around the $22 level, and I think it's going to probably go up from there. More and more silver. Here we are, the year of the dragon. And we're going to start to see this move in a positive direction. So I think the moral of the story here is we need to hold on to the silver that we've got, because I think that in due course, the amount of the demand as the mining supply continues to decrease, at least to some extent, and recycling, and the amount of those stockpiles get exhausted in silver that's consumed, sooner or later the markets will react. And when they do, that means it's good for us because the price is going to go up. And so that's the nuance here. Now, how long and the timing of all this, I'm not sure. The market has been very resilient to hold on to that. And nonetheless, one thing is for sure, we're going to continue to press on, because stacking silver, I believe, is a good thing. And so I want to encourage you silver stackers out there is to not give up hope. And what kind of hope should we have in stacking silver? That it will preserve our wealth and nothing more. Dreams of silver's price going to the moon, going to $50 an ounce, $100 an ounce, triple digits. Some people even say $1,000 an ounce. It's not going to be happening anytime soon, no matter what. It's just the nature of the market. It just there's a lot at play. There's a lot of complexities. There's a lot of nuance in the market that is far outside of even the suppressive nature. The natural market is a very powerful force, and a lot of it relies on psychology. Let me show you this piece of silver that I got. But before I do that, if you find value in what I provide here, I hope you will subscribe to the channel. Press that like button if you enjoy the message and the view before you hear. Let's take a look at the silver piece that I got. This, indeed, is a silver chalice, a very interestingly shaped one, toned here to perfection, I guess you would say. And it's a kind of a cool little piece here that I got this thing for 22 bucks. I think that's just a little above spot price. But I thought it was a kind of a cool little thing here, so I thought I'd get it. It's marked sterling on the bottom, and it might be one of those things where, who knows, I might put some wine or beer in it or something like that and drink out of it. But look at that. Kind of a neat little piece made of sterling silver. This thing was sold as scrap. I've saved it from going to be refined as most of the jewelry and silverware does. Keep in mind, there's a lot of silverware that is being produced these days, but a lot of that is going to India, not so much here in the U.S. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch. And yes, I want to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.